Bonjour, film lovers! Did you know that you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher Radio? We also have a website, realnerdspodcast.com, where you can find cool articles and other ways to listen to the podcast. You can also follow us on social, Facebook at Real Nerds Podcast, and Twitter and Instagram at Real Nerds. You can also call us at 720-6nerds5. We will listen to it, we will play it, and we will probably commentate on it. Also, email us at realnerds@gmail.com. Anyway, enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Real Nerds Podcast, where for 10 years we've gone to see a new movie and podcasted our experience of the world. This week we saw Ghostbusters Afterlife. Stay tuned to the end of the episode where we will review it generally, and then after the trailer we will spoil it for the audience and go more in depth. With me this week is Zach.
Cats and Dogs Living Together Mass Hysteria reboot.
And Corinne.
Hello, everybody.
And finally, back in the room with us is Henry.
Meatballs, meatballs, meatballs!
I remember that from Ghostbusters.
No, that's his catchphrase from his new sitcom, Hanging with Henry.
Yeah.
Nice, I like it. Yeah, Ryan's a little busy this week, so it's just the four of us. And he will call in his review at some point.
This is like a secret pilot for Real Nerds The Next Generation, where we have you have one person from the original show and then the rest of the new crew.
I'm like Zordon's floating head in Power Rangers, and you're my Power Rangers.
And Henry be Alpha because I want him to go ay 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 ay
Ay, 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 ay.
Perfect. I like this reboot. It's only been 3 years since the last one.
I think Saban is going to definitely buy us.
Yeah, that's awesome because they're filthy rich.
Yep. But they can't apparently do a wide release for Jay and Silent Bob reboot. So just saying.
Hey, what are we doing this?
So much money on the first Power Rangers movie. So.
That's fair.
What do we do on this show? Well, we talk about movie news. We go down the list of new 4K Blu-ray releases. We talk about what we've been watching, and I guess we'll start with that news. No, wait. Let's talk about what people have been up to. Henry, what have you been up to? You've been off this show for a while.
Well, I found myself in the mountains.
Why?
I was trying to find myself.
Vision Quest?
It was a vision quest, if you will.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have found myself. I have realized that I am, in fact, a god. We are all God, and I feel like this is my new religion that I've decided I'm going to found, I guess. The whole, filmmaking thing, it's been a struggle, so I've decided the alternative route I'm going to go is the cult route. So cool. I have bought a compound, and if you would like to attend the compound seminar, I host it every Saturday, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Is the introductory class.
Am I allowed to show up late?
As long as you show up before noon. Noon is when we start getting into the real heavy duty stuff.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
That's basically starting a cult is basically what I've been up to recently.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. Beyond that, I've just been getting through. I have a screenplay that is winning or is finaling in places.
Yeah, so. you made it to second rounds in Austin Screenplay Fest.
Yeah, that's been my trying to get an agent. If there's any agents out there who are very interested in a screenwriter, hit me up.
Yeah. Hey, if you need any testimonial, I've read the script that you've submitted, and it is fantastic.
Well, thank you.
It is it's a rough read, but in terms of its content, but it is a glorious piece of screenwriting.
Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad you're here, and you also recorded a ballyhoo.
I did.
Yeah, you recorded one on M.
Oh my God, damn it!
It's all about cross promotion these days, Brad.
Brad, I don't want to hear it.
I don't hear him talk about Real Nerds a ton on his episodes.
I do. I mention you guys all the time. What are you talking about? I guess I mentioned Ryan the most because he likes Golden Age Hollywood.
You mentioned us. You don't advertise the entire show.
That is
What am
true.
I, chopped liver? I like Golden Age Hollywood.
Yeah, I know, Corinne. I need to get you in the room. I'm sorry.
I mean, maybe I am not as knowledgeable in it as you and Brian are, but it's not like I don't like it.
Oh, no, believe me, it is not because I don't think you would be a great guest. It's just because I have the most forgetful brain on planet Earth. And it's coming out in strides the last couple of months. But yeah, no, Henry and I did one on M from 1931. So yeah, it was fun to see him again in person. So I think it's been like a couple of months?
Yeah, probably around that. Yeah.
Yikes. That's crazy to think about. But yeah, no, I'm glad you're here, buddy.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're here for the holidays.
Zach, speaking of Zach, what have you been up to this week?
What have I been up to this week? Finalizing some stuff for the new short film, Heavy Hangs the Sky. Recording a few more ballyhoos before I pack it in for the year. And I have started making headway on my research for the Jack Benny book. And I found out some stuff about Jack's film career that I didn't expect to come across. Primarily, it seems that Jack held up an entire production and nearly forced a studio to lose $150,000. So
we're learning about all the seedy, dark, unmentioned parts of his past. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not that, but like, you know how today when we have like sometimes like a production will fall through, like we have something all set to go and then suddenly just the entire thing goes kaput because some factor doesn't click and then like a bunch of money is lost with development.
You don't say.
This almost happened with one of his films, and there was a standoff for 15 hours before the studio just finally acquiesced to his demands. And I don't know the full reasons for every single thing, but I've seen the movie that they ended up making, and I want to know what it was before they did the rewrites, because it's a fun movie, but it's not a great movie.
Now I'm just imagining Jack Benny locked in his office with like hostages and a gun. Give me what I want.
Jack, we couldn't find you any of the writers you requested. We did find something even more wonderful, and they just bring in Frank Nelson. He goes, "Yes, now cut that out." And then let's see, that's a Benny reference for people. You listen to the show, you'll understand. But yeah, no, it's I mainly I just find it interesting because we don't think of all the times that some productions are held up, not just because of scripts being turned down, but also like in the middle of production as things are starting to click before something just goes off the rails and nearly all the money is lost. And so like, I just didn't expect to come across that in Jack's camp. So it honestly answers a couple of questions that I've had, but so it's been fun to kind of get into that and research that a little bit. If I guess I can announce this now. If this episode goes out on time, I will be on
It won't.
it won't? Okay, fine. Then you will have already heard me on the Glowing Dial Live with John Matthews, where we'll be DJing some old time radio and speaking with John Goodman, the son of Dickie Goodman, who was the innovator of the breakaway records, where they would like intersplice media clips in between like interviews and stuff like that, like gag records and whatnot. So yeah, just look out for that.
Yeah, I don't think an episode has gone out on time in like 2 months for this podcast.
I'm sure it has. We just don't remember it.
I'm just constantly like 2 weeks behind. Corinne, what have you been up to?
Well, I'm sure Brad talked about it already, but I helped him make a short film a couple weeks ago. So that was a good time. Got to, lie on the ground in a shitty alleyway off of Colfax at 1:00 in the morning. So, just living the dream over here.
I'm pretty tough on my actors.
Yep. And then, just working, early deadlines and holidays and everything. So trying to work around that. And then today I was babysitting my niece and she was having a blast, and I showed her How the Grinch Stole Christmas and what else? Oh, Mickey's Christmas Carol and things like that. So she was having a good time.
So when you showed her How the Grinch Stole Christmas, did you go through every step of the Grinch's plan in describing how the Grinch stole Christmas?
Well, thankfully there's narration so that it explains itself.
That is true. It is a really good instructional video.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think she really understood what was going on. It was just more, I mean, she's like almost 2, so it's more of just like bright
it's colors.
and cute faces and lots of singing. And she was also, she loves the Aristocats. So she was watching that. We were watching that, and she started singing along to Everybody Wants to Be a Cat. I'm like, this kid has good taste.
You know why? Because when you have Phil Harris singing as a cat, every child is addicted to that. It's like, it's to, not to use a bad comparison, but it's catnip for a kid, you know? Like,
it's funny you say that, Phil Harris, because he is also in Robin Hood and The Jungle Book as voice actors.
Yep.
And she loves those 2 movies as well. So my friend, her mom, was like, what is the deal here? Like, does she just love Phil Harris or something? It's like, but she also loves 101 Dalmatians. I think she just likes seeing like cute animals on screen.
Gotcha.
And babies. She also really likes babies, because I showed her the Pixar short Bao, which is the one where the little dumpling like kind of turns into a kid. And she loved that. We had to watch it like 4 times in one night.
Bao is actually really adorable. Here's
oh
how
my
you
gosh, yeah.
Here's how you test.
I don't think she gets it though.
Yeah, well, I mean, give her time though. Let's say she's only 2, but I mean, it's just a cute little dumpling child. Here's how you test the Phil Harris thing though. I'll send you an episode of the Phil Harris Alice Faye show and play it. And if she's addicted to that voice, then we know it's a Phil Harris addiction.
Okay. We'll have to do that the next time I babysit her.
Oh yeah. Kids love Phil Harris. They also love Frankie Remley.
He does have a great voice. Like, he is one of the better voice actors that Disney had in that era. Him and Zsa Zsa Gabor. She did a good job too.
Yeah, it's funny that like Phil Harris is a voice that, as it exists, nobody can really imitate it. I know they did for Tailspin, with where Baloo is a pilot, but it's never sounded quite the same. And I think I've equated that like he's one of those voices that is very like difficult or almost impossible to imitate. Like, you can't truly capture the same inflection he's doing it, because it's sort of a southern drawl, but it's also like a hep cat. So it's kind of like it's 2 different things kind of meshing into its own unique thing. And so like I've genuinely tried to figure out like who could do it, and I don't have an answer. It's why when they did the remake with Favreau, I was very happy that they just cast Bill Murray to do it, because I was just like, yeah, just make it a different kind of bear. Don't need to make it a Phil Harris bear.
Exactly.
Yeah. But you spoke of a film that you made with Brad. That leads us to Brad. What have you been doing?
I've been just cleaning up my files from that project. Getting promoted. I put down the teaser today. And I think, depending on how things shake out, we might be able to start inviting people to watch it online on Monday. So we'll see how that goes. Not everyone gets to be a part of that. So
it's like, is it like, so it's not like the regular 48 hour?
Yeah, no, it's a worldwide competition, and I think attendance is down this year, but there's still 59 teams. I think they have to whittle it down to a certain number, and then place them in certain groups.
Gotcha.
And then that elite squad of groups will get like a screening on a Eventbrite, I think, or something. I forget the hosting thing is for video for them.
Do we know of any film competition that puts you guys in the octagon and you have to fight each other with grip equipment?
I think
that's
that'd be
Slam Dance.
So that's why they call it Slam Dance. I thought they were just trying to be edgy.
Yeah.
Really positioning themselves to be different than Sundance as much as possible.
It's not as fun as Trauma Dance. At Trauma Dance, you get puked on. And that's a cool thing.
Brad, did you ever find out if there were other teams from Denver? Because I know we saw like that one group filming along Colfax, and we were like, they're not in the same project, are they?
Yeah, there's 7 other teams. I know one wasn't filming on Colfax. They just filmed at home. But yeah, there's 7 teams in our time zone.
In our time zone, I mean, that could be anybody.
Yeah, well, I know there's at least one other team that's actually from Denver because they screen at the Bug often for EFP.
I see.
There's at least one, but yeah, you're right. The other 6 could be Wyoming or New Mexico
or Canada
or
even Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
New Mexico, Old Mexico.
The North Pole or the South Pole?
Maybe even Chile, South America.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm not sure what else in mountain time in the southern hemisphere.
Maybe even Paris.
Ooh.
Oh, we know that's not in our time zone.
It's not even an artistic class zone.
We could have had Paris.
Hey, don't worry. We'll always have Paris.
Yeah, so
I'm pretty sure Paris, Texas is probably Central Time.
Good call.
That's a good smart joke.
It's also a movie. Congratulations.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Corinne wins.
Yay!
Beating out the Bogart and Henry's casual mention of Mexico. We all had a quip. And Corinne won.
Yeah. That takes us to the movie news.
It's real news. Alrighty.
What the hell happened this week?
Not a lot that I saw, unless you guys have things to report. The one big thing that I saw was that Cinemark was putting theater chains on notice, going like, why not carry Netflix films? So basically they're trying to make more deals with Netflix and kind of calling out the other distributors. So,
but does Netflix even want that though? I mean,
I think Netflix wants the theaters to do what Netflix wants them to do, because Netflix wants to play a power game, which is stupid. But they are technically making more money than movie theaters. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I would love to start seeing more Netflix movies in a theater because it would be fun to watch movies in a theater.
I feel like we get a bunch of them, like the Landmark ones and Alamo usually have Netflix features in them.
But they're putting out more movies than just the ones that you see every so often at Landmark.
What's like if Red Notice or something went
Red
to theaters or something.
Yeah, I mean, Army of the Dead went to the Landmark theaters for a little while.
How many people are really going to Landmark and Alamo theaters? I mean, I think most people are going to Regal or AMC, right?
Yeah. But the thing is, and Cinemark's also a huge chain. Like, it's not a small potato chain. Like, it does have plenty of locations, and given whatever location you're going to, it's actually very affordable prices. But AMC doesn't want to cooperate with them, and neither does Regal. So that's why, if they get screened at all, it's like for a second. When AMC does their Best Picture showcase, they cleverly / not cleverly omit all Netflix films. So if Netflix has a Best Picture nominee in the race, it will not be playing at that marathon. So like the year The Irishman was out, they excluded that from the entire deal. So, which is,
it's like one a year now. So
yeah,
it's not a Best Picture.
Yeah, I don't know what the Academy's like structure is on trying to limit how much really gets exposure from the streaming services, but I do feel like at this point, with the shifting market happening and the studios caving to dual releases anyway, I think theaters unfortunately have to just start taking what they can get. Because I'm in a sense, I hate to say it, but if they don't keep making superhero movies, there won't be a reason for movie theaters to keep financially afloat, because I do believe that people will go see a good movie if they want to, but box office numbers aren't really suggesting that, especially even with the biggest releases. Like, I didn't realize, like, Henry had to remind me, like, James Bond is one of the biggest grossers of the year, but it's losing a ton of money because of how long it stood on that shelf. So, there's still a fallout from the pandemic, in addition to a changing landscape. I think they have to start taking Netflix at their beck and call, because people might want to go.
I don't think it has to be just superhero movies. I think it just, the big blockbusters in general, because Encanto made like $70 million already.
Yeah, no, I know. I shouldn't have been generalizing that, because it's not an anti-superhero brand by any stretch. It's just, I point to that because that is the predominant genre that makes over a certain amount of money. But any big franchise, or Disney itself is a franchise. Like Encanto is a franchise film because it's coming from Disney Animation Studios, which consistently puts out that same quality. So I agree. It is the high budget. It is the blockbuster. Like, those are the things that'll still keep the theaters afloat. I would hope if they can work with Netflix, it means they may get blockbuster films, but they're blockbuster films that aren't necessarily tied to a franchise. So like, I frankly didn't really have much interest in Red Notice, but I'd like to see something that's not necessarily tied to a franchise. So maybe I'll give it a shot. But, I'm also aware that those franchises have kept the theaters going for a little while, especially as theaters have started to reopen. So, and I have to imagine that Matrix is going to do some form of big business in a theater, because I don't think nobody wants to just watch that on their TV.
Yeah.
So
were any of the fucking HBO Max films successful, like financially at the box office?
Godzilla versus Kong was pretty.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
A pretty good earner. Yeah.
Was there anything besides? I mean, but even that was not impressive.
No.
Was there anything that was like a legitimate hit?
So I'm looking at domestic box office for 2021, and top 5 are Shang-Chi, Venom, Black Widow, F9, and A Quiet Place Part 2. Mm-hmm. And then 6 is No Time to Die, 7 is Eternals, 8 is Free Guy, 9 is Jungle Cruise, and 10 is Godzilla versus Kong. If you're looking worldwide, it's a very different list.
Yeah.
Well, not very different, but it is, because there are some films on here that I'm like, what is that from? And it's like, Chinese movies and things like that.
The Chinese box office has been fucking insane this year.
Yeah, and also if you look at the worldwide box office, you'll see Avatar's back on that list because they re-released it in China.
Hell yeah. Us Avatar stands are doing well.
None of the Warner Brothers movies have cleared 100 million. Godzilla came the closest, but most of them are hovering around the same 60 to 80 million range, which may suggest it is something tied to their streaming if they're all sort of attracting the same audience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they announced they're not going to do it anymore either, so I'm sure they're not making as much money as they want to. So
they just announced what?
Well, I mean, they've announced that they're not going to do this whole same day streaming anymore.
Warner Brothers did?
Yeah, HBO Max is not going to do. No, next year they said they're not doing any same day streaming stuff. They're going to give HBO Max stuff a lot of original titles, but they're not going to do in theaters and streaming same day, I think.
That's too little, too late. But
well, yeah.
It's almost as if you shouldn't have made that dumb decision that made some of your directors jump ship.
Pandora's box is open. Welcome to the future.
For the worldwide highest grossing movies, Godzilla vs. Kong is number 6 with 467 million, and Dune is number 10 with 368 million. And both of them Warner Brothers.
Dune is a pretty decent hit for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's why they were able to greenlight part 2.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, I'm still like confident. Like, I think in terms of the streaming service scenarios that aren't tied to a big studio, my big thing is that Netflix and Amazon, for all the problems that I have with them in different respects, like, I'm sorry, I am susceptible to the fact that they're giving an untold amount of money to some of my favorite directors to do whatever they want. Yeah. So I somehow have more respect for that than half of the mainstream titles that come through. Like, I approve of most of those decisions, with the exception of like Christopher Nolan getting $100 million to make an Oppenheimer movie, which is like, that's never going to happen again.
Yeah.
Like none of the established old studios are going to do that ever again.
No, yeah.
This is a Nolan thing. This has nothing to do with a good story.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we'll keep our eye on it. See what happens. The only other big thing that I had really is that we got to look at the first 5 minutes of Jurassic World Dominion. So we got an opening of the prequel. I mean, it looks cool, I guess.
Are you guys sick of dinosaurs yet?
I've been sick of dinosaurs since Fallen Kingdom. Sorry.
It's a prequel?
What?
Is it a prequel?
No, no. It's like the
It's just the continuation, third film.
It's the third film. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it's a prologue for it. Looks fine. I'm sorry, it didn't enthrall me. I don't know if Fallen Kingdom just kind of like tempered my expectations of whatever Dominion's gonna be, but yeah. Did anybody else see the Jurassic Park Dominion?
I did.
I feel like I have the best Jurassic Park viewing experience because I've only ever seen the first one and none of the others.
You should keep it that way. No, wait. Watch the Lost World Jurassic Park. That's fun.
And watch 3. That has the bird dinosaur in it. The bird cage scene. That's scary.
I agree.
Yep.
And it also has a dinosaur that yells out "Alan" on a
Ooh.
plane.
Oh, you're right. I forgot about. Was that the third one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I've already seen that from Honest Trailers. They love using that clip.
And I love that they use that. Jurassic World is fine. I get it. Fallen Kingdom was taken with dinosaurs, and I was just kind of like, okay.
Which should be more fun than it sounds.
If anything, it should have been taken by dinosaurs.
Oh, the dinosaurs sell.
Oh god, can you imagine if Liam Neeson declares war on dinosaurs? That'd be the best movie ever.
Wait a minute.
Netflix, I know you're listening. You can greenlight this project tomorrow.
I have a very, very, very specific set of skills.
Dinosaur skills.
They get Steven Spielberg on the phone. They're just like, look, we need a dinosaur movie, and we also need to capitalize on the umpteenth anniversary of Schindler's List.
I'm 70 years old. But that doesn't mean I can't kick a T-Rex's ass.
And then Ray finds as one of the dinosaurs.
Yeah, of course.
But he's a dinosaur that can talk.
Yeah.
And
hey, we got connections over at Paramount now because they wanted us to pimp the Snake Eyes movie for them, right? We can just call them up.
Paramount taken with dinosaurs.
Universal's the Jurassic Park owners.
Universal.
Hey, they don't own dinosaurs. Anybody could have a movie with dinosaurs in it.
I'm sorry, Corinne, you didn't read the latest trade reviews where Jason Blum bought the rights to dinosaurs.
We're gonna start our own franchise, Cretaceous Acreage. I don't know.
Cretaceous Acreage.
I mean, didn't Disney make a whole movie called Dinosaur?
Yeah, but no one
was
saw
that a
it.
fever dream?
I did see that in the theater.
I did see. Oh my gosh. I want to blot that from my memory.
Cretaceous Acreage. It has such memorable lines as "Hold on to your keister," and "From your DNA," and
must speed up.
Yep, exactly. Greetings from Crustaceous Acreage. It's just like it's the asylum version of Jurassic Park, which seems like that should have happened multiple times already.
You kept thinking if you should do it, but you didn't even consider if maybe that was a bad idea. The famous line that everyone knows.
The asylum one is just Dinosaur Park. Like that's the name of it.
Dinosaur Park.
Dino Land.
Yeah, Dinosaur Land.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I was trying to quote that line for the longest time, and Henry nailed it.
No, I was just trying to figure out what's the stupidest way possible to say that line.
Yeah. Cool.
All
So that's
right,
news.
we're really off the rails here.
The last piece of news I thought would be a fun comic book thing is Delroy Lindo is joining Mahershala Ali in the Blade movie, and that looks fucking cool. I like Delroy Lindo. Who here doesn't like Delroy
Jon
Lindo? I'll
Snow?
punch them. What?
I said, and hopefully Jon Snow's going to be in it, right?
Yeah, but he's not Delroy Lindo.
Who dat?
Delroy Lindo is a star in such films as Clockers and most recently in Da 5 Bloods. He's a great character actor that's been used for years and is finally starting to get some wonderful attention. That should have been coming to him years ago.
He will be playing the titular sword that Blade wields.
Lindo Blade.
It's unclear. Also unclear is Lindo's role. although he's the first actor to board the project other than Mahershala Ali.
I think it's be Squirrel Girl. I think that he'd be a good casting for Squirrel Girl.
Didn't they already make a Squirrel Girl on Disney Plus?
Have they? Or is that like that animated Hit Monkey show that no one's watching?
I feel like they did.
They announced the Squirrel Girl years ago
and
casted it, but never got around to making it.
Oh, okay.
So
I thought they had a Squirrel Girl TV show on Disney Plus.
Maybe. I don't know.
Was Anna Kendrick the squirrel?
But I don't think it's called Squirrel Girl. I think it's called like whatever the squirrel's name is.
Rodent Queen.
Oh, I think she might be part of like a team up series on Disney Plus. That might be
that makes sense.
Anyway,
look into this.
Is that really the end of news now?
I mean, as far as I can tell.
All right. Let's talk about 4K Blu-rays.
Hell yeah.
DVD releases and Blu-rays.
What's coming out this week, Zach?
Well, there is a news item that ties into a release.
Oh, fuck.
First of all,
it's never ending.
First of all, Criterion's got some additional 4K releases coming out, so you can get Uncut Gems in 4K. You can also get Menace to Society in 4K, courtesy of Criterion. And you can also, of course, get Citizen Kane in 4K. Now, the quick caveat on that, and Henry alluded this to me yesterday, if you are picking it up, that first disc in the on the Blu-ray side of things, not the 4K disc, but the first disc on the Blu-ray, has a contrast issue halfway through the picture. So Criterion is offering a disc replacement along with a $10 Criterion gift card. So if you've bought your Citizen Kane 4K, which I did through Amazon, you are entitled to that replacement disc. So as a heads up for all of those people who were buying the Citizen Kane disc that weren't me, just be sure to know that you have rights here. And then Kino Lorber is putting out Invasion of the Body Snatchers in 4K. This is the 1978 version with Donald Sutherland and Leonard Nimoy. So if you would like to indulge yourself in some wonderful remake goodness, this movie is up your alley. You can also get the Addams Family in 4K with more Mamushka is the proclamation on the title. You can also get Wes Craven's original 1977 hit, The Hills Have Eyes in 4K. And coming off the presses from Scream Factory, we have Dracula, Dead and Loving It from 1995. The, as of now, final directorial outing from Mel Brooks. But I have a feeling he'll direct one more thing before he leaves, because if he doesn't, I'll cry very hard. And we're also getting Terminator 2 Judgment Day in 4K. I feel like they've already put this out in 4K before, or am I just an idiot?
It's a re-release with the same stuff. And there's a steelbook at Best Buy that's pretty badass, but
I know.
But they haven't fixed the image transfer, so it's kind of a moot point.
Oh, so it's very much like the Citizen Kane of action movies, is what you're telling me. They messed up the image in it completely. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's got heavy DNR scrubbing, and people are upset that they're releasing it for like the third time on 4K without fixing it.
Jesus.
Isn't it?
It's based on the 3D conversion done a few years ago, and they just, I don't know, for some reason won't bother fixing it.
I have a question. If James Cameron's able to re-release Avatar across the world to keep holding on to box office records, why can't he spend some money to fix this thing? Because this is something he holds a lot of rights to.
Apparently doesn't care enough about.
He's too busy going to the bottom of the ocean.
We just need to throw a bad transfer copy of T2 down to the bottom of the ocean for him to find. He's
searching for Gloria Stewart's Ghost and also a 4K copy of True Lies. But we can also get Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge, 1989 Arrow release. A guy called Eric owns a huge house, and some greedy people want to build a mall over it. So they get someone to burn down his house. Eric is badly burned, but not dead. And a year later, the mall is opened. When they don't realize that Eric is living underneath the mall, and he is very angry.
Man.
It's like the most...
Yeah, he's so angry that he lifts weights.
Phantom of the
not
Opera, but
joking.
pain and gain. And also, you can ask the question, "Where's your Messiah now?" in 4K this time, because you can get the 10 Commandments in 4K. You can get the 1923 version and the 1956 version, all in one amazing collection, featuring such luminaries as Charlton Heston and Edward G. Robinson. Yeah.
You're skipping over the best part there, bruh.
No, I didn't step over Edward G. Robinson. What are you talking about?
No, the best part of that movie is Yul Brynner.
Oh, yes, he's wonderful too, but he doesn't say "Where's your Messiah now," which is the only line that I love in that movie. No. But yes, also Cecil B. DeMille directs it, and he is a master director. He made a movie called Madam Satan, which is great, and people should watch that movie because it's out of its goddamn mind. So yeah, pick up 10 Commandments if you'd like. You can also get The Thin Man Goes Home, another entry in the wonderful Thin Man series featuring William Powell and Myrna Loy and Asta too. This time they are out to solve another mystery. You will have to tune in and find out what it is, courtesy of Warner Archive. I'm waiting until they put them all out, and then I'm just going to buy them in a bulk. So that I don't like forgetting to buy them.
He's just so thin.
But he's a man. It's funny. The Thin Man movies, the first one is technically about a thinner man who gets thinner man, but then the rest of them have nothing to do with a thin man. They're just like, the Thin Man. They know the Thin Man pictures. That's about it. And Lullaby of Broadway from 1951, featuring Doris Day and Gene Nelson, is getting released via Warner Archive. And we are getting La Cage aux Folles 2 from 1980, coming to you from Code Red. Looks like that's about it. I don't see anything else that people are itching to know about. Yeah.
So I have an update to my earlier thing about the Squirrel Girl. So it is a movie called Flora and Ulysses on Disney Plus, a 2021 American superhero comedy based on a children's novel of the same name. And it's about a girl who has a squirrel who is a superhero.
Oh,
I guess.
Cute.
It's not actually Squirrel Girl, but it's kind of the same concept because it's like a girl and a squirrel and there's superpowers involved. So
the way you say that is, it's not the real Squirrel Girl, but an incredible simulation.
Sure.
Yes. Gotta be dramatic with it, man. Anyway, that's
I'll leave that to you.
Okay. Acting.
And now for what we've been watching.
So, yeah, this is the stuff we've been watching.
Henry, what have you been watching?
Oh, well, I've been trying to catch up on the 2020 releases, or not 2020 releases. That was last year. Oh my God. I've been trying to catch up on the 2021 releases. Watched Eternals today. That was great. I enjoyed that movie.
Good.
I watched No Time to Die. That was great. I enjoyed that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed King Richard. And I enjoyed... That was the last movie I enjoyed. But anyway...
Wait, did you see something else that you didn't enjoy?
Probably. I'm just looking at my watch list and yeah. But Passing was fun. Passing and Spencer were not fun. But they were very acceptable.
They're very good. It's just it's hard to get super excited without realizing what they're about.
Yeah.
I like
Wait,
going
what's
to Palm
Passing?
Passing is a new Netflix film directed by Rebecca Hall, which concerns two women who are passing in the 1920s, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually very, very, very good. Beautiful cinematography. I strongly recommend it if you're interested in a black and white Academy ratio film about racism in the 1920s.
Mm-hmm.
Are you watching most of these on streaming or going out?
Yeah, Passing is a Netflix original film.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then I went out and saw Eternals, and I watched No Time to Die on a plane. Probably not the way they intended for me to watch that, but I watched it on a plane.
Better than seeing snakes on a plane.
Yeah, I guess. And the only other film I thought I'd mention that I watched, I've been watching a lot of stuff on Criterion Channel, and one that I watched recently is The Swimmer. Has anyone seen that?
I never even heard of it.
I feel like I've heard about this. Elaborate.
The Swimmer is a 1968 film directed by Frank Perry, which stars Burt Lancaster, which basically, the opening plot is that Burt Lancaster shows up to this dude's house in swim trunks And it's like, I'm just going to swim through your pool. And they're like, that's fine. You're our favorite person ever. And then while he's swimming through that pool, he realizes that if he like hops pools down the neighborhood, he'll eventually end up back at his house. And he was like, I'm just going to go home, but I'm going to swim through every pool in the neighborhood. And then he proceeds to do that. But the film then gets really weird and really sad and disturbing. It's the best way I can describe it is that it's sexy death of a salesman. And so I think Burt Lancaster said it was his favorite performance he's ever done. I strongly recommend it. It's a very interesting film.
That's right.
So it's Death of a Sexy Salesman.
Hell yeah, it is.
No, they just got the title wrong. I've heard of this movie, Henry. Now
it's very good.
Okay.
I think you would really like it.
Is it available on a physical, or is it only the streaming one?
I'm not sure if it's available. I actually don't know. It might be available on physical. I'm not positive.
I need to get Criterion Channel because they are streaming stuff that doesn't have a physical release in this country.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of really, really good stuff in there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention any of them, but they have like a massive section right this month on Fox Noir films. And I recently watched, it was 12 films, and I watched all of them, and their curation is very, very good.
Was one of them I Wake Up Screaming?
Yeah.
Oh God, it's great, right?
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah.
And it's the same, like one of the same Weasley guys from the Maltese Falcon.
Yeah.
The bad guy at I'm trying to remember his name at the moment. Elijah Cook Jr.
Yeah. But anyway, that's what I've been watching.
Cool. Corinne.
Okay, well, first off, we have a Catching the Classics that I did like right around Halloween, but through shenanigans or whatever, never got on the air. So we can go ahead and play that right now, Brad. Hey nerds, Corinne here for part 40 of Catching the Classics, where I watch famous and popular movies I've never seen before and send in my review. This week, it's kind of a doubleheader. I watched a third of Ghostbusters, and then I watched School of Rock for the first time. Yeah, so I've never seen Ghostbusters, and I was invited to a friend of a friend's Halloween party, and they were watching Ghostbusters outside, and I only caught the last third of it. And given that I didn't have any context for what the hell was going on, I was just like, well, that's a thing that happened. I mean, to be fair, it does make me want to watch the whole movie now, so I know what is going on. I mean, I get it, they bust ghosts, and there's, like, a big evil ghost they gotta defeat or something, but I don't know, somehow, like, Sigourney Weaver was, like, possessed, and then she maybe has sex with Rick Moranis to open, like, the gateway to hell or something over her apartment building, and then the city people turn off a thing, and all these ghosts start popping out and terrorizing the city, and for some reason only the Ghostbusters can stop this entire thing, I guess. My favorite part was when they, like, you know, show up at the building and there's this, like, giant crowd of people outside, which I'm like, I thought the whole thing about New Yorkers was they literally don't give a shit about anything. But okay, you know, like, somebody could be, like, you know, passing out on the sidewalk. They're like, whatever, and they just step over them. But yeah, everybody's, like, outside cheering, like, oh my gosh, the Ghostbusters! And then, you know, they're just, you know, taking in all the adulation, like, yes, we love you all, we're gonna go save the day. And then the ground opens up and it swallows all the Ghostbusters, and you're like, well, that's it, they're dead. Movie over. Oh, no, wait, they're alive, damn it. So that was pretty fun, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I like I said, I do want to watch the full movie now, and especially with this, like, reboot sequel thing coming out. I guess I don't really have any interest in Ghostbusters as a franchise. Just something that's like, okay, that's fine if you all like it, but I've never seen it, so I don't care. So, can't give it a review or a rating because I didn't see the full thing, but like I said, I'll watch it eventually in full one of these days, but just wanted to mention it. So then, this week, the actual movie I watched was School of Rock, and I think I've maybe caught parts of it on cable before, but never sat down and watched the whole thing all the way through. And oh boy, that movie is kind of cringe nowadays with the whole, Jack Black pretends to be a teacher and tricks a bunch of kids into starting a rock band. And he's like lying to all of them. And it's not even like he's lying. It's like he is actively manipulating everyone around him. Like he gets the principal drunk and starts playing Stevie Nicks songs to get her on his side and to get her to agree to the field trip. And he's like manipulative to his roommate and the parents and everybody. And it's like, ugh. If he wasn't played by Jack Black, this character would be just like immediate villain. But Jack Black has that charisma, so he can kind of get away with it, at least more than most people would be able to. And sorry, it just really made the movie hard to watch for me. I mean, yeah, the kids give great performances, and he has some funny bits in there about like, the different like history of rock and everything. But yeah, it was really awkward to watch this like grown man manipulating these children into doing the thing he wants them to do. And it's like, oof, that doesn't age very well. So got to give it a lesser grade for that. But, Jack Black turns in a great performance. He's clearly having the time of his life. And I can only imagine, like, the child actors must have been having such a hard time keeping a straight face. There were, like, a couple of really funny bits. The one that stands out to me is when he's, like, once again, lying through his teeth. At least it wasn't his idea this time. But, he's lying through his teeth to, like, the gig people. And he's like, oh, these kids, like, they're all sick with cancer or whatever. And you see the kids outside, or, they're just, like, sitting around and they look lifeless. And one of them's, like, just laying on the ground and they're just coughing. And I'm like, oh, perfect. Now, I think, like, the real comedy of the, like, yes, some of it is coming from Jack Black and just hits. He's a super enthusiastic performance. Like, you can tell he really loves, like, rock and teaching and people about rock and talking about rock and roll and all this. And that definitely comes across in his performance. I just wish the character was more likable and not a complete villain. It's like, yeah, I get it. By the end of the movie, he's become less selfish and everything. But I'm like, you still did a whole bunch of illegal shit. And most of it involved children. So let's not glaze over that, shall we? But anyway, I'd give it probably 3 stars. It's a movie that exists and has some funny bits to it. I wish they would, that's a movie that honestly kind of deserves a remake, in as much as, like, you could kind of take the same premise, but just instead of him being a liar, like, I don't know, maybe he just stumbles across these kids and they already, they are already forming a band. And so then he just kind of, like, falls in with them. I don't know, something like that. But it's like, you have a decent-ish premise, but just make it less problematic and cringy, if at all possible. I don't know. That's what I would say. So anyway, hope you nerds had a good time for Halloween and everything. And I will talk to you all later. Bye! So, for us on the call right now, I talked about how I sort of watched Ghostbusters. I caught the last, like, third of it at a Halloween party. And I was like, well, this is really weird. And I wish I had context for this, because I had never seen Ghostbusters before. The original Ghostbusters, by the way. And then this week, I was hanging out with my friends Brett and Jerry, and just mentioned in passing how I hadn't seen Ghostbusters properly. And of course, Jerry freaked out like, what? What do you mean you've never seen Ghostbusters?
Wow, that sounds exactly like him.
Yep, totally. And so we were actually watching Rogue One, and he and Brett were both just like, no, we gotta watch Ghostbusters right now. And it's like 9 o'clock at night. I'm like halfway out the door already. They're like, no, we're gonna watch Ghostbusters. So I got to actually properly watch Ghostbusters, and it is fine. It's I mean, I'd probably watch it again just because, sometimes when you watch it with a group like that, there's like commentary and it's like, it's not funny when you kind of talk over it and then the jokes can't land properly.
Yeah, you should never do that to first time watchers. That's not cool.
It is what it is. I mean,
that's something you do when you've got friends who've seen the movie before and like you've watched it 5 or 6 times.
I mean, It wasn't like terrible, but there were definitely moments where, especially at the beginning, because is it Bill Murray's character who's kind of the sleazebag and he's like hitting on one of the students, and I was like, oh boy, this really didn't age well, and I was just like, oh god, this is so creepy. And Brett and Jerry are over there just like laughing their asses off, and they just see me on the couch just like cringe face, and they're they're like, whoops, guess she doesn't like it.
Corinne, I'm sensing a great disturbance in the nerd force, as if there were a million voices were crying out in anger and then just wouldn't stop screaming.
Uh-oh. We got a ton of toxic emails coming into the Real Nerds Gmail right now.
Oh my God. Henry, man the port bow. We've got to defend the fortress.
I hope you're ready for a 5-hour dissertation about why you're wrong. So
they're all from dudes.
I'm going to hear it here. I'm going to hear it from the angriest of Reddit users.
So there actually was a really good joke in there that, I mean, I think like just on the surface, it's just like kind of, I don't know, like a throwaway line maybe, but so it's when Dan Aykroyd says, like, I've been in the private sector. They expect results, which, because they've been in academia for so long, it's like, you're implying that in academia, they don't expect results, which I'm like, I knew a whole bunch of professors in college and they felt exactly that same way of just like, you just kind of like hang out in your office for 20 years and people kind of forget you're there. So it's great.
Yeah. Corinne, like I love that first movie, but I'm like, I don't hold it on the same pedestal that others do. So I understand where you're coming from. I think it's a good movie. Just, it's not like, it wasn't my childhood. So.
Yeah. I'm glad that you gave it the credit of having one good joke. Like you defended it to the audience.
There were other good jokes in there, but that was the one that actually made me laugh out loud and it was funny because Jerry and Brett were kind of looking over at me like, wow, she found that funny? Because I wasn't laughing at like much else in the movie.
I still do love when Harold Ramis says, I collect spores and various fungi. Like that's a cute little nerdy thing. But
I think I remember that, and that was a pretty good one too. I remember both times I watched the ending where they like get out of the car and they're like, oh, we're gonna save New York, everybody, there's like the crowd cheering for them, and then the earth opens up and they all fall in, and I said both times like, well, Ghostbusters are dead, movie over, I guess. That would have been interesting.
That's why they called it Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Because they're dead.
You see.
So, like I said, I would be willing to watch it again. I wasn't like completely so off put by it. I'll never watch it ever again. It's fine. It's like everybody else's Back to the Future. Like it's just beloved by people, but just not by me.
I gotcha. I understand. Would you be interested in Ghostbusters 2?
They said that I should watch that, and I'm like, I don't really care. Sure, I guess.
I like it a lot. Like in the grand scheme of liking Ghostbusters, like I think it's a fine movie. I don't think there's a single bad Ghostbusters movie, but they just also are not like, they don't like cling to my soul the way they do for others. I kind of enjoy Ghostbusters 2 for several different reasons, but between that and the reboot, I'd be curious for you to go through each of them and give us your honest opinions of each one.
Yeah, I don't really care about the franchise enough to do that. It was just
when you finish that, comedy. You can watch the animated show, watch all episodes of the animated series, and reviewing one by one your thoughts of each one.
Henry pointed it out for me. I'm a fucking idiot. Don't do that, Corinne.
What did you watch, Corinne?
Yeah. So lately, for whatever reason, I just went on this like X-Men binge, and I watched all of X-Men Evolution and all of Wolverine and the X-Men, both of which are on Disney Plus. And now I'm just kind of skipping around through X-Men the animated series. And I gotta say, I grew up watching X-Men Evolution as a kid, and I love that show to death. And it is honestly amazing how well it's held up over the last like 20, 25 years. The premise is that, most of the X-Men, they're teenagers. And so they all kind of like come into the school and they're, struggling like how to figure out using their powers, but also being normal, quote, normal teenagers. And also keeping their powers under wraps, because the first half of the show, people don't know that mutants exist. And then halfway through the show, they get outed, so to speak, that, the world is, gets to like, oh, mutants walk among us and all the fallout that happens from that. So that was interesting to see them tackle that subject. And then the final 2 seasons, they're building up to Apocalypse. And then the series finale, they are battling Apocalypse. And yeah,
they're battling Oscar Isaac.
No, actually, they're just battling Apocalypse.
I know. I remember this show, but I'm trying to remember how long it lasted, Corinne.
4 seasons.
Oh.
Yeah.
I remember that Wolverine was not one of the teenagers. That's what I remembered.
Right. So, yeah, they have Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm is one of the instructors, and so is Wolverine. And then they have Shadowcat, Rogue, Nightcrawler, and Spike, who is Storm's nephew, and he can shoot spikes out of his body. So, and he's a skateboarder. Although they kind of just like completely forget about him in season 3. Like he just goes off and lives with the Morlocks, and then he shows up twice in season 4.
I'm fairly sure Spike pops up in X3, The Last Stand. He's one of the mutants that disrespects Eric, and then Eric has to go like, "I'll show you, young man." And then I believe he gets taken out by one of the cure bullets or whatever it is.
Right. I mean, that might be somebody with the same powers, but I don't know if that's the same character.
Well, Wikipedia is there for reasons, so I'll look this up.
Because I don't know, Spike. I'm not sure if Spike exists in the comics. That might have been a character they created for the show. Which, incidentally, X-Men Evolution is where they first introduced X-23, aka Laura, Wolverine's clone/daughter. Mm-hmm. So that's where she originates from. And I got to that episode and I was like, this is such a great episode. Oh my gosh, she really is just like a little mini Wolverine. And I love the fact that his dynamic with like all of the teenagers is like way different than it is in X-Men the animated series. Because of course there isn't the, Cyclops, Jean, Wolverine love triangle because they're teenagers and he's, one of their instructors. But there is kind of this nice little nod to it because Cyclops is all like, oh, I should really ask Jean out. Oh, what do I do? And Wolverine's just like, if you don't tell her, I will, which is like, yes, such a nice little nod to like the love triangle without actually getting into it.
Oh, Corinne.
What?
Spike is played by Lance Gibson in X-Men The Last Stand. I knew a comic book thing. Boom.
Good job, Zach.
Yeah. What's my prize? Nothing? I figured.
Wolverine in the X-Men is it's a little bit newer. I want to say 2011, and it's only 1 season. It kind of ends on this like, sort of ambiguous note. Like, yes, they wrap up the kind of central conflict of the season, but they leave a few things that they could have picked up for season 2 if they got one, but they didn't. So it's fine. It definitely gives a lot of emphasis to Wolverine, so much so that sometimes the plot has to come to a screeching halt. It's like, oh yeah, the world is basically at war with the mutants, but let's stop all that for a second so Wolverine can go fight a samurai in the street. Sure, okay.
Yeah, but that sounds awesome. So I'm sure that the other part's also good. But if I was just kind of flipping channels and I was like, oh, do I want to watch the internal conflict of these mutants and what in their identity? Or do I want to watch Wolverine fight a fucking samurai? I'm going to pick the samurai option.
You know what? Hold on. I'm torn now. Like, I'm genuinely torn. Because do I watch the moral and ethical debates between Eric Lenscher and Charles Xavier, or do I watch what you just wonderfully described?
Yeah.
I am. You know what, Henry? You've put me in the first real dilemma of my adult life.
Well, actually, Professor X isn't really in Wolverine and the X-Men. It's kind of explained at the beginning that he falls into a coma at the very beginning of the show.
Well,
but
that's a terrible idea.
He communicates with the team from 20 years in the future using Cerebro. So he's like teamed up with Bishop and all of them to fight the Sentinels.
Similar to Days of Future Past. Gotcha.
Exactly. Very much like that.
Right on.
So he doesn't get to meet up with Magneto or anything.
So Magneto doesn't get to tell him that they are the future and not the others. They no longer matter.
Nope. But yeah, sometimes it's just frustrating because it's like, I like Wolverine, but the show gave him way more emphasis, and it's just frustrating because I'm like, you have such a great array of mutants and characters here. It's like, why do you have to focus on Wolverine so much? And I understand he's very popular, but maybe it's because he's focused on so much. Like, focus on some of these other people, and maybe they would be more popular too.
You know, I don't mean this to sound as a joke. I genuinely don't. I don't know why nobody's tried to dig more into Scott Summers, not because I think he's the most like dynamic character that I've ever seen, but there are stories that have done him well, and there are conflicts that put him at odds with Wolverine directly in regards to Charles's legacy down the line in those stories. I don't know why nobody's tried to do that. They came close with the latter trilogy with what's his guy Ty Sheridan playing Cyclops. They came close, but you really need to like dig into that character. I think if you're going to break away from Wolverine, you should try that. Yeah. And like don't rely on the crutch of Jean Grey. I know she's a wonderful character, but try something different because it could work. Yeah. You know.
Well, that's why X-Men Evolution works so well, because Scott is really likable in the show, and he's maybe not a leader of he leads the teenager X-Men because he and Jean are some of the oldest students at the manor. But, depending on the situation, like, he might not always be in charge because, when the situation really is serious, like Storm or Professor X or Wolverine will step up and take over.
Or occasionally
But generally,
Blob.
Right. No, no, Blob he's in the show, but he's not on the X-Men. He's in the Brotherhood.
Yeah, of course he is.
So honestly, like, that's one of the reasons I love X-Men Evolution. That, and because in X-Men, the animated series, man, they nerf Jean Grey hard. She is like one of the most powerful mutants, and I know she has the Phoenix Saga too, but like just in the day-to-day episodes, it's like she's just getting knocked out by, like, I don't know, TV static or some bullshit. So to see her in X-Men Evolution, like at the beginning, she definitely can't use her powers to their full potential, but you can see in the latter seasons, like, she's starting to, have better control over them. Like, she can lift more weight, she can hold things for longer. And, before, she could barely lift a person without, like, straining herself. And then by season 3 and season 4, she can lift, like, multiple people and carry them, great distances and things like that. So
that's how I appreciated that. That's how I evolved on the Real Nerds podcast. At first, I couldn't lift any of you guys, and now I can lift one of you. Progress, not perfection.
Anyway, so lots of X-Men stuff for some reason. So do you guys want me to talk about Encanto now, or should I save that for later?
Do it now.
Okay, so I went to go see Encanto last night. I honestly didn't know it was a musical. I guess all the marketing that I've seen for it, I wasn't expecting there to be songs like that. But, I mean, it was fine. Lin-Manuel Miranda was the songwriter, and it's like, you can tell because, man, he must be the only songwriter in Hollywood anymore because all the songs sound very similar to everything else he's written, which isn't necessarily bad. It's just like, wow, we're getting more of the same. All right. But the story is excellent. The voice performances are great. Animation's beautiful. So I highly recommend it. Also, I wrote like a full-length review for it on the Real Nerds website, so you should go check that out. realnerdspodcast.com. Should be under Showtime, Encanto review or whatever.
new stuff on the website. Wow.
I know. I hadn't posted on there since like August, which I feel bad about. But life
I haven't
happens.
posted on there since last August. So.
Yeah, so go check out the Real Nerds website. And I would definitely want to talk about it more once we can do like a spoilery review for it. Is that our movie of the week next week, Brad?
No. Well, next week, which we're already on Wednesday here, but this week is Raccoon City, Resident Evil.
What?
Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City, based on the motion picture series by Paul W.S. Anderson, starring Mia Makova.
I've never even heard of this.
I've
heard of the
Mila
Resident Evil
Jovovich,
movies.
that's her name, yeah.
Is that the one where Jared Leto plays a zombie? No, that's House of Gucci.
Got
Take
him.
that, Jared Leto.
Are you
Taking people down a thing.
Are you
the Real Nerds way.
Are you firing shots across the bow at Ridley Scott for some reason?
Well, I'm a millennial and he's declared war on us. So,
Real Nerds with the hot takes.
Hey, you know what? You're just indifferent, is what you are, young man.
Yep.
Well, I respectfully request that we change that to Encanto for the next episode.
I nominate House of Gucci to piss off Henry and Ryan at the same time.
I'd see that.
I'm actually I'm going to go see it tomorrow night because I need a gangster movie, and this seems like the closest equivalent I'm going to get. So, Jared Leto I didn't know it was Jared Leto. I had to be told it was Jared Leto. I'm like, are you serious?
It's got Adam Driver in it. I'd see it.
It does. It also has Al Pacino, and it has Lady Gaga. Not with Lord Gaga this time, just Lady Gaga.
Just the lady.
Yeah. She had to go out on her own, man.
Yeah.
Lady Gaga needs to do her own thing with Lord Gaga is in Nightmare Alley.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't think we're gonna get to it because this week is Ryan was very adamant that it's Resident Evil because
he loves that
podcast and he loves that. And then next week will be Film Explosion 2011, and then I don't know, West Side Stories after that. Maybe that's when we can kick to the curb.
Okay.
Yeah. Fuck off, Spielberg.
Yeah. What have you done for us lately?
No, we should see West Side Story. That's like actually a musical.
Actually, guys, hi, it's Spielberg here. I've given you years of magic, and according to at least 3 of you, I'm the world's greatest living director, which isn't true because my friend Marty's clearly better.
No, fighting words for James.
I can't really do a good Spielberg impression. It's not like Lucas.
Yeah, I like how your impersonation of Steven Spielberg is just your regular voice. So,
I'm sorry. Is this better?
oh god.
Anyway, that's all I've been watching.
Zach, what have you been watching?
Oh, I've watched a lot actually. But before I talk about any movies, I want to talk about a television show I watched? ? No, it's true.
You watch television? That's not allowed. That's my thing.
Hey, Corinne, not only did I watch television, I watched anime.
Martin Scorsese does television?
Was it a gangster anime? Is that why?
Yes, it's Martin Scorsese.
Old Hollywood anime.
Yes, it's Martin Scorsese's Tokyo Godfathers. No. A show called Fruits Basket. That was suggested. Wow. Not directed by Martin Scorsese.
Spill the tea.
First of all, not directed by Martin Scorsese yet. But
he'll get around to it, just like he turned Infernal Affairs into The Departed.
You know what? Settle in, Brad. I don't think that's the case. No. So this Fruits Basket is a I was not sure what to make of it at first because it's been recommended to me by both Malia, my friend Malia, and Corinne here. And it's about a girl named Honda who is living out in a tent in the middle of the forest. And her mother has passed away. And she's going to school and working and basically trying to be self-reliant. And she's not really letting anybody help her or accepting any help. So it's like that, kind of like that strong will, but also like not knowing when to ask for help, pursuing through her system. And she runs into...
It's because she doesn't want to be a burden.
She doesn't want to be a burden. Yes, that's right. Thank you for that. Because she saw how, like, part of it has to do with how her mom died and what happened before that, and her mother worked very hard to see that Honda could succeed, where she could not when she was a kid. So as she's going through the forest, she stumbles across this house that has these stones that are painted to look like the Chinese zodiac, which has all the animals except for the cat. And then that's when she runs into a guy named, I'm trying to remember how to pronounce it, but it's Shigure. Shigure?
Shigure.
Shigure. His cousin, Yuki Soma, who Yuki Soma is the most popular guy at their school ever. Corinne, this guy has a fan club, like some kind of weird fan club, of three different girls.
Them? I mean,
No,
he cute.
No, Yuki, I do him, but I'm just telling you that it was weird to watch these three, like these three fangirls doing like this, like aggressive, like advance on Honda, going like, what were you doing with them in the forest? What were you doing there talking to him? What were you doing there walking to the school? And it dawned on me that I had not watched anime in a long, long time. And I had to reacquaint myself with how quick things are, how the humor works, and how speed works. Once I got into that, the story really started working for me. First of all, they explained the Chinese zodiac and all the different animals that are in it, except for the cat, because the cat was tricked by the rat in not coming to a banquet where all the Chinese zodiac would ascend, and so the cat was left out of the zodiac. And as Honda is, like making further friends with Yuki alludes to the fact that like they are talking about the zodiac, and he alludes to the fact of just like, cats, such naive and foolish creatures. You're like, what's this all about? I don't know. What we do know is that Honda is is working her ass off to be self-reliant and not wanting to be a burden. But she then ends up winding up in a position where she needs to be taking refuge at Yuki's house. So Yuki and his cousin basically agree, like, we're gonna take you on as our housekeeper, and like pay you in addition to having you live here. And she goes into this emotional speech about the phrase "be safe," which was one of the most like heartwarming things I'd ever heard in my life. And so I guess, like, in a way to review this, I was not expecting to be moved by this anime. So I'm really, really glad that it was recommended to me by two people, like, to be like, before diving in. But there was like a lot of emotional resonance that I was just like I wasn't prepared for. Then things get crazy, because this is only the first episode, guys, because as they settle into their new life together, there becomes a conflict with another person who enters the house, and she accidentally bops him and he turns into a cat. And then she bops Yuki and her cousin, and they turn into a rat and a dog. And I immediately was just like, oh, this show is going in such a weird direction that I have to be on board now. So I'm going to go through an episode a day now on this. But it was like, just the storytelling in that first episode alone, Corinne, was a really good, like, really solid storytelling. Like I said, I still had to get used to anime, because I'm watching the original series prior to the reboot. So I'm going back to, so that's what I mean by, like, because like my friend told me that like the reboot series tones down the humor a little bit. I kind of enjoyed the humor in this version. So
I think they're both funny.
Yeah, I'm excited.
They're
for
both pulling
iterations.
from the same source material, but maybe just sometimes like the tone might be a little different.
I feel like it kind of reminds me of what I remember of stuff like Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, where there's humor mixed in with all the action or intertwined drama, and sometimes the tone feels a little uneven. But I didn't get it with this one, because it's primarily like it's human drama based. It's not based off of like Goku trying to find 7 Dragon Balls and make a wish. This is
This is more shoujo anime, not shonen, which is the one with like all the fighting. This is more like romantic comedy sort of thing.
Yeah, which is I think kind of one of the reasons why I dug it, because I was just like, oh, it's just like it's people interacting in a situation. It has nothing to do with action. So it was interesting to look at it from that perspective. I think them turning into animals threw me off though in the last 30 seconds, because I'm like, what is this show going to be? But I am very excited to see where it goes. So yeah, your guys are going to get some anime talk from me going forward. So Corinne has a friend on the show now.
Yay! I'm very curious to hear what you think of it. I'm glad you like, the kind of emotional core, and that definitely doesn't go away, but I will say it can be kind of melodramatic at times, because you're talking about like, oh, Toru makes this like emotional speech. I'm like, that's every episode, man.
but I do appreciate that there is a humanity behind it. And I appreciate that there's this smaller story of Honda trying to find herself and be comfortable with herself. Like there is something like the whole phrase where her mother goes like, be yourself. Like, it's just like, that's just a nice, simple statement to make. Like, it doesn't have to have an overarching theme. She doesn't have to go on a quest and destroy a ring. Like, it's just like, just be yourself. Like, enjoy your life with these two guys who are now also secretly animals. What's the story there? I don't know. We're gonna find out. But yeah, like it was just nice to kick back to that and watch something that people recommended to me in my life and go like, man, that was like amazing. Like, I cannot believe I missed out on this. So, like sometimes it's good to get a good recommendation by that and realize that like your friends do look out for you and go like, he probably would enjoy this. And I'm like, yes, I did. Like, so I'm on board with that. Now on to the golden age of Hollywood. Yeah, everybody. I went to the Attaboy Clarence Film Festival day 2, and I saw a bunch of films. Some I've already talked about on this show, so I won't talk about everything. But I will tell you that I saw Guilty Hands, which is my review of it was, my hands are guilty of clapping heartily at the end of this motion picture because it was a good movie. You see. Then I watched a movie called Silver Dollar, which is actually based off of a real life figure from Leadville, Colorado, Tabor, who built the Tabor Opera House. Corinne, do you know of anything about this?
I do not.
Okay, so he was a silver baron, and he got caught up in the fight between what would become the standard, whether the gold standard or the silver standard in the country, and it had a lot to do with President Grant. What this movie actually is, and I wish it was more readily available, is that it's basically There Will Be Blood before Paul Thomas Anderson ever sat down to write a movie, because Edward G. Robinson plays a Daniel Plainview-esque character. It's not as intimate as that, but it is really very much like the early origins and genesis of that. It's also kind of Citizen Kane before Citizen Kane happened. Virtually every identical plot point, to the point of even building an opera house. So it was very, very interesting to watch it. And Edward G. Robinson gives this amazing performance in the movie. Like, it's not what you expect out of him. He's not really a gangster. I think they asked him to do the accent that he does, or like the drawl on his voice, because it's the most appealing to the audience. But he's asked to do an actual character here, and it's fantastic. It's one of the best movies I saw at the festival that I hadn't already seen before. Then I saw Mitch Lyson's Murder at the Vanities, which is a filmic portrayal of Earl Carroll's Vanities mixed in with a murder plot, because I guess they needed a plot. I don't know. I think Mitch Lyson looked at the plot and said, guys, we've got the Vanities here. What the fuck do we need a plot for? And the studio said, but we need a plot. And Mitch Lyson was like, well, can I still do weird acid trips on stage? And he's like, well, of course you can. And so they did both. And the movie is therefore inconsistent, incoherent, but amazing. So if you are wanting to watch a movie that is purely an excuse to promote Earl Carroll's Vanities and what it was, this is your movie. This is the show that Jack went to work for before he went to radio. And looking at the staging of it, I was like, holy fuck, the Vanities must have been fun. That must have been the most decadent party of the 30s imaginable on stage. And knowing now that my great aunt got to go to one of them, I'm jealous as shit of my great aunt. So then I watched Easy Living, which is scripted by Preston Sturgis. And I liked it a lot. It's a daffy kind of movie. It's also directed by Mitch Leisen. It's got Gene Arthur and Edward Arnold. I want to watch it again because we were kind of having fun with the bombastic noise of the film that I kind of want to go back and kind of listen line by line. But basically, Edward Arnold is this rich guy who throws a coat out of his apartment building, and it's picked up by Gene Arthur, and everybody thinks that he's suddenly dating Gene Arthur. It's a lovely film. It's got more to it. I wasn't paying as much attention on that particular film. My attention snapped back though with a movie called 5 Star Final, which this movie is readily available, especially through Warner Archive. It's got Edward G. Robinson in it. I will tell you that this movie is one of the most relevant movies I have seen out of the golden age of Hollywood in terms of to this minute. It's about a paper essentially, which is intentionally creating scandal in order to sell more papers. And it goes
plot to Tomorrow Never Dies.
Yes, but with actual consequences and not James Bond consequences. Like genuinely, this movie goes into some dark territory that I'm amazed you get away with it. Number one, it is a pre-code movie, but even for a pre-code, like this shit is fucking dark. HB Warner is in it, and he gives an amazing performance, but I can't tell you why because you've got to watch this fucking thing. I will say that there is language in this movie too that I did not realize they were able to get away with in 31. There is racist language.
Are they, they're not dropping like F-bombs or something.
No. M has cursing in it. This movie has like people in the newspaper industry actively using racist terms in it now, but they're using it in this weird way, like that is comparable in some odd ways to how Scorsese and Tarantino use them. And I don't know how to fully explain that other than like, you know how like they do that to envelop you in the world of those characters. I think that's what this movie's doing because I've never really seen a pre-code movie that has the audacity to use that language. And I almost think it's a movie that Martin Scorsese could remake this and virtually change nothing in that script and still make an effective movie for today. It's kind of a miracle movie. It's also a movie that will depress the hell out of you over what we experience now. So I would definitely recommend watching it. It is available on Warner Archive and through Amazon Prime. It's a great Edward G. Robinson movie. He's a piece of shit in this movie. And then when he flips by the end, you actually believe it and he's actually earned it. It's not a forced Hollywood ending. Like this is a genuinely good golden age Hollywood ending with a dark message behind it. And then I also rewatched Our Miss Brooks, the motion picture. That's just chicken soup for the soul, guys. So that's why it's a 4-star movie. If anybody has any problem with that, I'll fight them. And then I rewatched a movie called Kid Galahad with Edward G. Robinson training a boxer and helps him rise to the top. It's an okay gangster movie. Not really a gangster movie. It's more of a boxing movie, but it's got gangster attitude towards it. And Humphrey Bogart plays the manager of another fighter who's also basically a gangster. Basically, they're gangsters, but they're also doing fighting stories. So it's kind of like Rocky, but not really Rocky. And then I rewatched Island of Lost Souls because it's Island of Lost Souls. And why wouldn't you want to rewatch Island of Lost Souls? And apart from that, I rewatched M, which is amazing. And you'll hear more about that from me and Henry on an upcoming Ballyhoo. And that's all I watched this week.
Well, I don't know if we have time for my stuff, so let's just move it along here. I'm just kidding. I watched a couple things starting with TV this week. I finally watched Freaks and Geeks, which I've been told for a long time to do, and people were right. It's great. It was way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
It has if it was a Netflix series today, I think it would do really well. It takes place in 1980, and it's a high school show about high school, and you focus on the freaks and the geeks, and there's kind of like a trio of geeks that have the storyline, and then the main daughter of the Weir family. She is a mathlete who, not entirely sure why, but she's kind of rejecting being a mathlete and her life up to this point. I assume something about her grandmother dying has.
She kind of has a personality shift, and it kind of like forces her to reevaluate her identity.
Yeah, so she starts exploring new friends, and she falls into this freaks clique, which is basically just a bunch of burnouts who hang out and smoke between class, and eventually all these characters kind of, some of them have in between the freaks and the geeks, they have their own animosity toward each other, but both those groups also are united against like the jocks and everything. And it's just like it's a really cool look at high school life, which, when it came out, I was the same age as those people in my junior year. So it's really weird that, like, to watch that, and like when it came out, it just felt like they were years ahead of me.
You should watch Undeclared as a follow-up, because that's another show with a lot of Apatowites in it.
Yeah, I forgot to preface with, like, it was a early Apatow, and like watching all these, like, the whole cast top to bottom, all these people went on to do great things and have super successful careers, even though this show was canceled in the first season. And so, yeah, seeing all them really young and just, they always felt like adults to me as actors and performers, but like they were literally my peers. So yeah, just that was wild. And then there was the show takes place in 1980, and there's a line at one point where they're talking about like a movie's coming out and they should go see Friday the 13th. Like there's another one out, and I was just like, well, the first one came out in 1980, so how would there be the sequel yet if they're talking about another Friday the 13th? Because I assume this season is just that 1980 to 1981 school year. So part 2 would have come out in May of 81, which, the school year would have wrapped up before then. So
I think it's kind of like my Mad Men hookup within the pilot, where he reinvents the branding for Lucky Strike cigarettes with "It's toasted," and I'm like, that phrase was there before you got here, Don Draper. Shut the fuck up.
Maybe they really just wanted a second Friday the 13th movie.
Maybe they did. You never know. That show, you kind of just sparked a memory for me, Brad, because I really love that episode where Seth Rogen's character is torn by if he should stay with that girl who he finds out is a hermaphrodite.
Yeah, that's ahead of its time. Like
it's extremely ahead of its time. But the conversation that he and Sam have about appreciating the people that are in their lives, because Sam's just like, I took my girlfriend to the jerk and she didn't like it, and Rogan's like, my girlfriend loved the jerk. And I'm like, oh my god, this is adorable.
Yeah, just like the whole arc of the season, the kid Sam, is pining after this cheerleader girl. I forget her name right now, but she seems nice enough as a person, but when they actually end up dating, and right away, like, they realize their whole attraction to each other is superficial. And it dissolves super quickly, and it's just, I don't really remember seeing a lot of stuff like that in shows from then, but also I watch a ton of shows like that. So, but yeah,
I think that show is also secretly Martin Starr's show as Bill. He's great in that show. Like,
oh, everybody is. I just yeah, and it's really tough to get to episode 18 and just be like, all these loose storylines just sitting on the floor. Nothing.
I know. It's why I can't go back to it that often, because I'm just like, I know it's gonna end and it's gonna make me sad.
Yeah, it's been 20 years, so you can't really do, season 2. You'd skip over high school entirely.
Yeah, and you also have to address certain cast members, but
yeah.
I would check out Undeclared afterward. Undeclared is a lot of fun. It's also unfortunately too short a stay, but you get a lot of. I love how both those shows give you a sense of what the Apatow vibe is going to be for a good 10 years, and I appreciate that era of comedy that we got, and I hope we get more of it in different forms. Like I still haven't seen King of Staten Island or.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
Okay.
So I also watched this week's Saturday Night Live, and man, I'm really loving the season.
It's pretty good this season.
Yeah, and ever
surprisingly so.
Yeah, ever since the break came back too, like even just the sketches really good. Like I always like the weekend updates, but just the individual sketches, it just feels like for a cast that's unusually large for an SNL cast.
It is a very large cast this year, feels.
Yeah, like the new feature people are getting a ton of screen time, and Kate McKinnon's still in the credits, but she hasn't appeared on an episode yet. But yeah, they do a good job of like rotating people in and out because some episodes won't have certain people at all. Then they'll be on the next week doing a ton of work, and just like this week's Doghead Man was great. That's probably my favorite. But it's actually a recycled sketch because Sam Rockwell, I think 2 or 3 years ago, did a similar sketch.
Yeah.
But it seems like they it was a little clunky then, and they've since rewritten it, and they redid it this week, and it was like way funnier. And it is Simu Liu was the host this week, and he was like doing this army general thing, and it just seems like everyone's having fun on the show. Do
you think it's because they're rotating them out so that like they're not oversaturating you with the same performers each time, that's kind of giving it a nice fresh take on it?
Yeah, I think no one's really getting a chance to like become a star, and like take over the show. So it feels very much like a repertory group where everyone's kind of putting in equal time. And, I feel like some people like Punky Johnson are still getting the shaft because I think she gets the least. And she's often a very small part in whatever sketch she does get. And then James Austin Johnson's getting a lot of time because he can do a ton of the like relevant impressions because he does both Biden and Trump. So he's like
his Trump impression's pretty good.
Yeah, he's got that, like not just the the sound, and he's also got like the psychology behind it too. It's not just a complete caricature. So yeah,
I thought their music video this last weekend was really good, and the Are You a Republican game show thing, that was pretty cute.
What's that?
Well, basically, like they bring somebody out, and then based on like really vague statements, they try to guess whether they're a Republican. It's like the guy comes out and he's like, I hate Facebook. And they're like, because it spreads misinformation or because they banned Donald Trump.
Yeah. Just highlights how difficult to navigate, like how, like not, everything seems divided, but when you get down to it, like everything is really, some of the people you think are one way actually also go the other way. Just depends on how you read them. Yeah.
Right.
It's not quite so obvious sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
nuance.
Yeah, that was fun. Then movie wise, I watched a couple. The big thing, I flew all the way to Los Angeles to watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the new release cinema.
Mm-hmm.
And
that sounds awesome.
Yeah. It sucks that I only spent like 4 hours there, really, and spent equal time flying there and back. But it was cool because I did not expect Ernie Reyes Jr. to be there, and he got up on stage and talked a little bit before the show, and that started late, which sucked for my car meter, street meter. But and then Kumail Nanjiani was there, and I forgot he's a Ninja Turtles fan, so apparently that's the first time he ever saw it in the theater. So he was just hanging out there watching it with a crowd, and everyone was having fun and into it. And the screen there is actually pretty small compared to, a comparable theater to that would be the Esquire here. And the Esquire's screen is way bigger than the New Beverly.
Their screen size is just a little bit bigger than the top level of the Esquire.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty narrow. I love that intimacy that it has though.
Yeah, it's like the top level of the Esquire, or like the third screen at the Chez Artiste.
Yeah, but it also but it's kind of great because it does have plenty of seats, and number two, it does give you a really fun 70s kind of experience out of it. Like you do feel like you're like stuck in a little grindhouse. Like it's really cool.
That reminds me, they had like their own pre-show where they played a Disney cartoon with Pluto like at odds with a turtle.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the name of it, but yeah, Pluto was like kind of sparring against a turtle, and they become friends at the end, obviously. But yeah, they had their own, and they had a bunch of different like retro trailers, like Batman Returns is playing there this weekend, so they did that.
That plays a lot at their kiddie matinees.
Yeah.
So if you ever want to rewatch Batman, like keep an eye on their kiddie matinee schedule, because they do that, and they do oddly enough, they do the birds a lot too. And I don't know, that's not really a kids movie, but.
And the main reason I went is because it was projecting in 35 millimeter, which I haven't seen in probably 30 years. So that's why I went through the trouble of doing that, because it's played at the Alamo and the Esquire here plenty of times digitally. And yeah, so it was cool kind of seeing all the cigarette burns and scratches again. And there was a couple parts that were cut out. Someone had clipped the reels and taken them home. So that was fun to watch. Yeah, constantly expecting lines to finish, and then they're just emitted and the scene jumps, and you're like, oh, cool.
Not gonna bother to restore it, man.
Yeah, and then at home I watched a movie called Showtime, which I haven't seen since 2002. When I stocked it on shelves at Hollywood Video.
Eddie Murphy and
Robert De Niro. In the early days before, when reality television was still in its infancy, this movie is a version of Cops that's more focused on the leads as starring characters. So Robert De Niro is like an undercover cop trying to track down these illegal guns. Eddie Murphy is an aspiring actor who's also a cop. He screws up De Niro's plan. De Niro gets really angry and makes the department look bad. So as an apology, the department agrees to put both of them into this reality show that follows these two cops. And basically they're trying to solve the case while also make this deal with navigate the world of reality television. So, the show will come in and renovate De Niro's apartment so it looks trendier, and Eddie Murphy's happily being like, regurgitating all the cop movie cliches to make the job more interesting than it really is. Yeah, it's fine.
I still never seen this movie, Brad, but I remember seeing posters for it all over the Greenwood Plaza 12 when we would go to the theater to see a movie with next to us. And I've still never seen it, but do you happen to know if it's rated R or PG-13?
Pretty sure it's R.
Okay.
They swear a bunch in it.
Okay. So then that's why we loved Eddie Murphy in the house, but I remember seeing some Eddie Murphy posters where my dad was like, we can't go to that one.
Yeah.
Like, why not?
It's definitely like somewhere between 13 and R,
Yeah. That was the same reaction that my dad had when I asked, could we go see Life with Eddie Murphy? And he was like, no, we can't go see that one. I'm like, why? Now, when I watched Life, and I was like, oh, no, that's why. My dad didn't want me watching that at 5.
Next thing I watched was Jingle All the Way, which I haven't seen since the 90s. And that's a fun movie about the dangers of basically Black Friday, really. But it really goes down the toilet once Arnold Schwarzenegger puts on the suit and starts flying around as Turbo Man. Those effects do not hold up.
No, of course they don't.
There's one point where he, Rocketeer style, the jetpack smashes right into a wall with his head, and he just smashes over and over again. It's like a cartoon. He's like a 2x4 that's just rigid and hitting the wall, and the physics don't hold up.
Yeah, it's same with Sinbad, really. They're both just there to be kicked around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I remember watching that movie a lot when I was a kid, and then I think I rewatched it a couple years ago, and I'm like, oh man, so man, that kid is so annoying.
Yeah, when you're a kid, you're on Arnold Schwarzenegger's side, and you're even on Sinbad's side. But as an adult, I'm like, I'm on Phil Hartman's side.
yeah, Phil Hartman's a sleazebag neighbor in that, and poor Jake Lloyd, like you just said, he's annoying. Like he's
I
had
know
two
it's not
roles like that
necessarily
in
his fault.
Anakin Skywalker. It's like no wonder he's disgruntled.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying it was, you watch it now and you're like, oh boy.
Yeah, and I didn't know there was a post credits scene, but that was cool to see.
Mhm.
Didn't know that existed.
I mean, like that movie is a cool little like holiday film if you're looking for something offbeat. Like, and anytime you can watch Phil Hartman on screen is a treasure that you should enjoy. So
yeah. And then the last thing I watched was Timeline, which is Richard Donner, archaeologists, go back to medieval England and get in trouble and have to come back. Paul Walker's in it, Gerard Butler.
family's in it, huh?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like I've seen that movie, although I don't really remember it.
Yeah, I didn't really follow it too closely. It was pretty, I don't know. It just didn't, nothing. Oh God, who else? Michael Sheen was the villain.
Of course he was.
But yeah, like I couldn't figure out the science of it or how they got back in time. God, like it's so hard to explain. The movie is so wrapped up in like it believes in itself and doesn't care if you're along for the ride or not, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like like so much of it just feels like you should already know what we're doing. And it doesn't really, like there is exposition to explain the time travel, but like I just wasn't, nothing about these characters in the setup was like, oh cool, like I'm so invested in their adventure. But yeah, they're like these archaeologists that are digging around this castle, and then the dad disappears, Billy Connolly, and they're like, oh well, let's just hop in the time travel machine that we happen to have and go get him. I was like, well, why did he disappear in the first place? Where did I miss that? And then as soon as they get back in medieval times, the cool part is like the movie addresses the danger of like if that actually happened, like it's almost like a death trap. It like the past is so dangerous, like you would easily get killed. And so a bunch of their group starts getting picked off by there's like a war between England and France at this point, so no one trusts anybody. And so if you're just like a walking human, they're like, oh, that guy's probably not one of us, kill him. They just kill him. Yeah, I don't know, it's just blah. And that's what I watched this week, which brings us to the movie of the week, Ghostbusters Afterlife, which I guess just Zach and I will be reviewing because Corinne and Henry both didn't watch it.
Yeah, screw you, ghosts.
My friends went
You're
to...
not afraid of them, are you?
No.
Yeah, my friends invited me to go see it with them last night, and I was like, nah, I'm going to go see Encanto instead. Have fun.
Bye. All right, so since Henry and Corinne didn't see the movie, I guess it's just you and me, Brad.
Zach, should people watch Ghostbusters Afterlife?
Of course. Yeah, you should. We can get into it after the spoilers or after the trailer is played, but I'm under the impression that there's not a bad Ghostbusters movie out there. All of them have been perfectly adequate and entertaining for what they needed to be. This one was very much a sentimental look at the franchise, and I appreciated what Reitman did to honor something that clearly meant a lot to him as a kid, not just because of his father making the first one, but just the idea of the Ghostbusters, while also finding a way to like dig into the mythology a little bit and give it something that I don't think it ever really possessed, but I think we have to get into the after the trailer for me to fully explain my reasoning for that. But I think everybody's hitting on all cylinders. Paul Rudd's fun. The kids are great. The original cast has some wonderful moments, but we will talk about that in a second because it was interesting to me how that played out. And I actually thought that there was some fun horror elements attached to this that I think Reitman did a good job at pulling off. So yeah, I would go check it out. It's a fun time.
Yeah, I thought it was a fine movie, a fine addition to the Ghostbusters mythos. I think I didn't enjoy it as much because it definitely had the Rise of Skywalker thing going for it, where it very much feels like an apology video, and just offers up so much fan service to the point where a lot of this movie is a repeat of the first movie. So it gives the longtime fans, the stuff they want to see again, just repackaged, while offering very little new along the way. So that disappointed me. Is like, I think this is a franchise that really needs to explore new things within it rather than just giving the fans the movie they had 30 years ago again. So yeah, here's the trailer for Ghostbusters Afterlife.
What are you doing here in Somerville anyway?
Honestly, my mom won't say it, but we're completely broke. And the only thing that's left in our name is this creepy old farmhouse our grandfather left us in the middle of nowhere. Why'd you bring me up here?
Entertainment value?
What is that?
I don't know.
Somehow, a town that isn't anywhere near a tectonic plate, that has no fault lines, no fracking, no loud music even, is shaking on a daily basis.
Under the dining table now!
Hey, remember that one summer we died under a table?
I found this in my living room.
Whoa, killer replica.
A replica of what?
A ghost trap? There hasn't been a ghost sighting in 30 years. New York in the 80s? It's like The Walking Dead. Your dad never mentioned this to you?
It's just my mom. My grandfather died. My mom says we're just here to pick through the rubble of his life.
Wait a minute. Who are you?
Call it fate. Call it luck. Call it karma. I believe that everything happens for a reason.
Come on, darling.
It has a gunner seat?
Plus two, like if you've been following the Ghostbusters reboot for the past 20 years, the plot of this is very much been circling around for a long time, and it feels like Jason Reitman's the one who finally just said, let's just do this one.
Mm-hmm.
So except instead of Bill Murray being dead, they went with Harold Ramis, which makes sense because he actually passed away a few years ago.
Yeah, so the opening of this film to me was a strong asset right out the gate, because the thing that I appreciate about the first Ghostbusters in particular is the fact that it starts off like a haunted house movie or a horror movie. It's not really starting off as a comedy. What?
What?
I heard an
That wasn't me.
But anyway, so I heard I got this sense of a horror movie coming off of it, which was good because I liked that feel to it. And like, I mean, the moment you see that silhouette, you know it's Ramis. And that also put fear in my spine because I'm like, oh, I know what they're gonna do. And I don't know if I want to see it.
And to their credit, I think they pulled it off pretty well. Like
they do.
It was odd that they couldn't have him speak because they're.
If he had spoken, I would have flipped my shit. I don't know why. I just probably would have just been like, "Don't do that, guys. Please don't."
But it seems like odd. Like there doesn't seem any rules to why he wouldn't be able to. You know, like every other ghost makes noises, but he was oddly silent. Obviously, because they just couldn't replicate that. But the CGI of him on his own just was convincing. Like, you know, there's CGI characters in Spider-Man Far From Home that I'm just like, I'm not sure they're done with this movie yet. But they pulled him off as a elder Ghostbuster pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, like, the reason why that works for me, number one, like, I'm glad you don't have him speak because I don't think you need to have him speak. I think it's important to feel that presence, and that's more. Egon in this movie is speaking through the power of a ghost, and he's all throughout the movie. Like, Egon is a character in this entire movie. He's just a ghost. He's done in a series of movements of objects and pointing his granddaughter towards the key to this whole mystery. But we talked about a rehash and a Rise of Skywalker element to it attached to this. Yeah, the moment I knew we were dealing with Dozer again, I was just like, oh, but we solved that problem in the first movie, didn't we? Like,
yeah,
I didn't fully quite understand how you could bring him back. I don't care. I'm glad it gives them an excuse to do a bunch of cool ghost stuff. I was a little puzzled by that, but it didn't really bother me. Like, what else were they going to do, really, is my question. But
I mean, create a new threat, you know. When they introduced J.K. Simmons as Ivo Shandor, you're just like, okay, well, we didn't see that guy from the first movie. He was just talked about. So I thought maybe, you know, it'd be him with like a new like threat attributed to him, but it was still just, you know, he gets off really quickly, and then it's Gozer from there on out. So, and it's cool seeing Olivia Wilde play Gozer, I guess. Yeah, it's you know, it's just been cool for them to create something, because like I said, they took care of Gozer, so reintroducing Gozer just feels like, okay, well, the first movie didn't actually solve anything. You know, it takes the wind out of the sails of the first one.
In a sense, though, it's interesting how it comments on what does happen to the Ghostbusters after everything that goes on. And I have no idea if the second one even plays into into this one at all.
Yeah, I was confused because, you know, you have this movie with, you know, led by kids. Because again, they took like, you know, someone watched Stranger Things season 2 and was like, oh, kid Ghostbusters, that'd be great. And added that to this, but also like the second one, Oscar.
Baby Oscar. Where's Baby Oscar in this?
Where's Baby Oscar? Like, that would have been a character that would have made sense to add to this, especially since a lot of the elder Ghostbusters reappear in it. And then post credits, there's even Dana.
Yeah. So I had this feeling that in order to do Oscar, you needed to get Bill Murray to be more involved, and they weren't going to do that. They'd been trying so hard to get him involved in a Ghostbusters movie where he's returning as Venkman. And it took Jason getting involved and the concept of honoring Harold to finally push him in that direction. So I don't know what it would have meant if you had Oscar in there, really. It's kind of like you can either have one or the other. And I mean, like, I frankly don't think we should be picky. you know.
Well, the whole family lineage is so screwed up across the board. Like even Egon with his daughter, it's like, you know, he has this fractured relationship. We find out that he has a daughter and now grandchildren, and also they're so wrapped up in like that split. It's like, well, doesn't she also have a mother? Like, who is that? Because it's not Janine.
Yeah, that's
she talks to Janine.
I thought that's what it was going to be, but then I was just like, oh no, Janine's just there for a second and then she's gone.
Yeah. So where's this other person like that never gets referred to at all? It's just bizarre. And then, you know, the other post-credit sequence with Winston brings the Ghostbusters back to New York. So maybe there's a sequel plan where maybe Oscar is a character.
I did not see the post-credit sequence. Can you describe it to me?
Oh, we saw the one with Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver, right?
We saw that one because we saw that Sigourney Weaver was in it, and we're just like, wait a minute, hold on, she wasn't in there, and then they just cut to it.
Yeah, no, there's a final one where Janine is talking to Winston, and Winston's like in his corporate high rise, whatever, because he's a multimillionaire now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're having a conversation which I didn't quite follow, but it's sort of just talking about like how successful he's become, and then it cuts to, because you know the movie ends weird with a cutaway to the Ecto-1 crossing one of the bridges in Manhattan.
Yeah.
But then it returns, so they're having that conversation. And then Winston's talking about his future plans, they go back to the firehouse, and like he's walking around this deserted firehouse that we know and love, and he directs the Ecto-1 to pull into the garage. But then I'm like, Ray said that they turned the firehouse into a Starbucks, so how is this possible?
Well, maybe he's playing coy is the theory there, I guess you could play into.
Maybe he's joking, but still, like, even if the Starbucks didn't pan out, like, there's no remnants of a Starbucks in there. It's just the classic interior of the firehouse. So, but yeah, he just directs the car in, and then it, you know, ends. So I wasn't sure what they were trying to set up. I felt like maybe they do maybe have a trilogy planned out, possibly, but
so
I'm not sure what that was supposed to allude to.
I have a question, because we've been through several different elements of Ghostbusters being brought back, whether through sequel, reboot, or this rebootquel. Can we remember one thing for a second before we go too far into the story, plot, and structure of this? That first Ghostbusters movie is not meant to be a Star Wars property. That first Ghostbusters movie is meant to be a comedy with ghosts.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that to denigrate anything by any stretch. I am here to point out, though, that these movies probably did not. I don't think there was ever a real intention of a huge franchise at the time that they made this movie, that first movie. And I think Ghostbusters 2, from all indication, there was an even bigger struggle to get that made in certain respects. So I find it hard, especially with the way people on the internet connect on this stuff, to get too much stock built up into what Ghostbusters plots are supposed to be, primarily because if I'm going off of just the movies and not the cartoon show and not any, you know, subsequent iterations, these movies are meant to be comedies first and foremost. And I feel like people don't want comedies out of these movies anymore. I think they want an actual story about hunting ghosts. And what I liked about Ghostbusters Afterlife is that it is a comedy. It's not, it is intent on being funny in certain regards. Does it succeed the same way the first Ghostbusters does? No, not particularly, but there are funny moments in this movie.
Yeah, briefly. I didn't laugh that much. It was it very much felt like a serious family emotional movie to me.
There, I would argue that the interactions with the kids and the interactions with Paul Rudd are rather funny. Like,
yeah, they're traditional like family comedy, amusing, but this movie is devoid of anything like dickless over here. Is that true? Yeah, this man has no dick. Like, there's nothing nearly raunchy at all, or subversive.
Well, regardless of how much it has of one or the other, I do wish that when you come at the Ghostbusters angle, like, I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but like, if we are talking about an outright comedy, because like, I agree that this doesn't have the same amount of laughs as the first Ghostbusters, but technically the reboot that Paul Feig did was giving you the movie you would have wanted, which was a comedy about hunting ghosts. And this one felt like a Star Wars reboot in the vein of maintaining certain elements of the Ghostbusters. But one part that I did notice of it, which might be the reason why we're devoid of laughs, is number one, we're dealing with kids as Ghostbusters. So it's kind of hard to make a bunch of sex jokes when you've got kids in this movie.
For sure.
But second of all, also, there is an attempt to treat this mythology seriously. And as a result, it becomes a little too self-serious. And I don't know if Ghostbusters needs that. But again, I had fun with the movie. I did laugh. I enjoyed the podcast kid. He was adorable. I thought I loved the little Stay Puft Men killing each other. I thought that was funny. I thought that was very hilarious. One of them's in a blender. I cackled with glee at seeing an actual practical Gozer, the dog creature, eating something inside of the Walmart. Like, those are things that I enjoyed. But I do wish that this movie had been a little bit more romp a minute kind of vibe. Like, I would have liked a little bit more humor injected into more situations with this. But I think you're trying to balance a bunch of balls in the air that are impossible to balance, considering what they had to work with and what expectations they had to work off of based on Paul Feig's attempt of it. I think they did pretty good. You know, like, this could have been a very different outcome.
Yeah, like I think it's like the Ghostbusters mythology, and like they did such a good job of world building in the first movie, and then with the everyone being like following the cartoon show as kids, like getting more fleshed out there, I guess. It just feels like for years people just want like a live action version of it where it is taken a little more seriously. Because like, how many just one-off jokes can you make about ghost hunting? And there's been plenty of like ghost movies since then that they could sort of parody, like Paranormal Activity, Blair Witch. Like, I think there's some comedy to mind there through these movies. But overall, I think everyone's just been clamoring for like, hey, let's treat the fact, like, treat the science of this thing like it's real. And I think you get that in this movie, but at the expense of more laugh a minute stuff. But I think the other thing that holds it back is none of the characters really have an arc or have a problem that needs to be solved by the end of the movie. Like, yeah, the family is destitute and has to go live on this farm, but they still got a farm to go to. And they never really struggle with acclimating to the town. Like, the kids just kind of go to school and there's never really any adversity there. So
I think Phoebe's on a self-discovery journey that I enjoyed.
I guess, like, she starts out very matter of fact, like science is science and ghosts don't exist, but that's quickly turned on its head. So it's nothing she really, I don't know, struggles with, I think.
I think considering that her family history has been hidden from her in several different factors, like, it's trying to figure out who your family is, which in a sense is a very, I mean, Brad, you know me, I'm a sucker for geezer exploitation and grandfather and grandmother stories, and watching Egon with his granddaughter helping him bust a ghost is an image that I was just like, that's adorable. Oh my God, this movie's won my heart.
It's a nice image, but there's very little setup for her to want that by the end. Like, she's never clamoring for, like, I never got a sense that she was clamoring on knowing, like, where did I come from? What, like, she never seems suspicious that anything's wrong in her family. So there's no payoff to that. It's just like, oh, well, cool. She found out about it. It's just an addendum to her life. So the scene when she starts yelling at her mom about how come you never told us, it just feels like empty. It's like, where's this coming from? Because you never were suspicious that there was anything wrong in their family before, or that anyone was lying to you, or withholding anything from you. So I never, that didn't like resonate with me. So like it's sentimental to watch it play out at the end, but like I didn't feel like there was a strong setup for it. It just kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. Like, oh, this is something she cares about. I didn't get that.
Gotcha.
So,
it may just be a matter of interpretation, but I mean, like I do feel like I walked out of the film enjoying the time that I had with those characters and with that memory of it. I guess at this point, like I'm curious to know how you feel about the way the remaining 3 Ghostbusters appear in this film.
It was cool to see him again, but again, it was very much like they were thrown in to appease the fans. Like, I kind of wish the movie was Phoebe unlocking a mystery of like where these people go. And so for a while I was waiting for that, and then all of a sudden it's just resolved with a phone call to Ray, where Ray just exposition dumps like what's happened in the past 30 years. And some of it's like confusing because, he tells Egon to go to hell, and then he explains like, oh, Egon took all the ghost stuff and ran off to Oklahoma and left me here with nothing. And then he shows up later with everything. It's just like, oh, so I guess Egon didn't really screw you. You just had like one less proton pack and the guy who can fix it all. So that was like, oh, okay, well, and then the rest of the guys were pretty easily recruitable. It just felt like, again, like the Rise of Skywalker thing, where it's like, well, the fans probably want to see these, as odd as it'd be to see them as old as they are wearing the uniforms. They want it there, and they'll be happy if they see it. So here it is. So
yeah,
and I also think it takes away from the kids saving the day because they can't without the old crew. So it's really the movie doesn't resolve itself without them.
Yeah, I mean,
it takes away from their victory.
I agree. I agree at that part. I'm a sucker for watching those guys back in the suits. At the same time, part of where my frustration with it, if I have any, because believe me, it's very little. I mean, like I said, this movie basically gives you what you want, and you have a fun time with it, and it's shot pretty. Eric Spielberg's work is great in it as the DP, but them showing up only after that encounter with Ray, I almost feel like this movie's already about 2 hours. Just go the full mile, give us 2.5 hours, and give us more screen time with Murray and Hudson, or even just Hudson. I know it's difficult to get Murray to do this, but find a way to flesh that out a little bit better, because I did feel like that was a last minute ditch. Like, in a certain world, again, like I'm not complaining here, but in another world, you could have had this ending with just Egon showing up and none of the other 3 are involved.
Yeah.
And in a sense, it probably would have been a more powerful movie. But I'm glad to, like, I know Dan Aykroyd gets the shit kicked out of him at times in recent years, but I liked watching him as Ray again. I liked watching him get genuinely pissed about the way the Ghostbusters have ended up over the last 30 years. Like, I liked watching him do that.
Yeah,
so
I like watching him too. It just felt like it didn't fit with the plot, It just felt like it was there because fans wanted it there, Like you said, Harold Ramis helping her at the end, like that made sense because we set it up at the very beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will say though, if I had a complaint about the 2016 Ghostbusters, it's that their cameos, the way they did their cameos, Bill Murray's was funny. I thought Dan Aykroyd was absolutely wasted in his cameo, personally.
I didn't remember his.
His was, he drops somebody off in a cab and says, I ain't afraid of no ghost, and then he drives off.
Oh, yeah.
And then Ernie Hudson's is kind of adorable because he's supposed to be related to Leslie Jones. But Dan Aykroyd, along with Harold Ramis, is the creator of this franchise as it exists. This is based off of his concept. So, I really wish he'd get a little bit more respect in that regard. And so technically, I think this movie does a better job at honoring Dan Aykroyd than the other one did. And in a sense, I'm very happy about that because, Dan Aykroyd created something that a lot of people really want to see other iterations of, so long as it fits their specific vision. And that only happens when you have Aykroyd sitting down with Ramis to write this thing. So, and frankly, it's more emotionally resonant for Aykroyd as it was probably for Ramis than it was for Bill Murray, because this was a movie for him. I don't think it was the same. It doesn't feel like it was the same experience as it was for Ramis and Aykroyd. And so I was happy to watch those two be honored. The creators of Ghostbusters are the ones who are ultimately honored in this movie, which is nice.
Yeah. It'd be cool if they're going to go forward and create I can see a world where they can actually fold the 2016 Ghostbusters into this.
I could too.
If Ernie Hudson is creating franchises of Ghostbusters that all exist in the same universe, why can't they just find a cool ghost story, look to the Conjuring movies or something, or what James Wan's done, and do one of those, a cool ghost story, where the legend of the ghost is interesting, and then work that into a comedic angle of why, what's funny about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, because the first movie with the ghost and everything, that's a ghost story. The Vigo thing in the second one, that's its own legend. Since then, they haven't been able to find. There's plenty of ghost legends out there. It's why can't they seem to just pick one and just go from there instead of just making these fan service movies?
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of this movie is just here's the ghost trap again, here's the car again, here's the proton pack again, here's a Slimer knockoff. It's just
voiced by Josh Gad. Here's
all the stuff you've seen before, just in 2021.
I do agree with you because believe me, I'm my wariness on franchises of all sorts, whether rebooted or continuing, it can try my mental patience at times. Even though I still enjoy these films, the amount of them that we have in our presence, it can get a little bit too overwhelming to where I'm just I just want to watch a movie about a couple fighting. I don't want to necessarily watch a bunch of ghosts anymore. You know what I liked though is that I don't know all the reasons for Reitman wanting to do this movie, but I'm glad he did this movie because nepotism aside, if you're a kid, if you're Ivan Reitman's kid and you're on the set or watching the young Ghostbusters for the first time and you're my dad did that, that's so cool. I'd love to do something like that. It's got to be a cool feeling. And in the grand scheme of directors whose kids go on to direct, going back to franchises that they started, I think this is one of the best case scenarios out of that whole scenario happening, because we also know where the other ones can lead. And I appreciated what he did with it. It's funny though to consider this amidst Jason Reitman's filmography is the real thing, because we're talking about the Ghostbusters franchise. We forget that this is an Academy Award nominated director doing this movie, and out of all the films he's done, it is the most starkly different movie he's ever made.
Yeah, I think his art house sensibilities definitely help the small town feel of the movie work well.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's really jealous, but he definitely doesn't do the big budget comedy like his dad does.
Right, and I think it's important to signify that difference because you are looking at two different artists who share similar sensibilities in humor, because there are elements of Ivan Raimi's humor, Ivan Reitman's humor in his son's movies, but they're directed in a different energy. It's not broad. It's character. It's like very inwardly character based. And so like watching inward character motivations coming out of Ghostbusters was pretty interesting to watch. So yeah, I like the movie. I would definitely rewatch it. Do I want another one? I don't know. If they do it, that's cool. Like, I'm very happy that people can have some Ghostbusters in their lives, you know?
Yeah. I think there's plenty of places this can still go. Like I said, the world building of Ghostbusters, I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there. They just need to not be so afraid of of picking one and just rolling with it.
Right.
Because it just seems like they just can't get away from, like, if they step outside of the first movie, that they're just going to get destroyed by fans. And...
Well, I mean, frankly, Brad, I'm really tired of fans running how these movie properties work.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's frankly, I'm sorry, but it's one thing that something belongs to the fans. It's another thing to start demanding stuff. And I frankly, I like that female reboot. So
yeah, I think it's fun.
I would have loved more adventures with those gals. So I frankly don't care anymore what the fan community wants at times, because it's a weird form of community market research combined with corporate mentality that I don't appreciate. But thankfully Marvel has kind of avoided some of that. But like DC, Star Wars, other franchises have come under this, and I frankly don't appreciate it anymore. I'm happy that this Ghostbusters movie, though, comes out of a genuine heart from Reitman, because if we were going to get an iteration that wasn't based off of the Feig reboot, this is a more than adequate solution to that. So yeah, I think we could go on and on forever on this, though.
Yeah. Yeah, so next week, I guess we're going to watch the Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City reboot.
So do I have to watch the first 5 now to just finally, after all these years of delaying it, just buckle up for that franchise?
I think you have to play the games for this one, because this movie looks exactly like the first game.
Oh.
It has no connection to the Paul W.S. Anderson films.
Yeah.
Clean break. No Mila Jovovich. Yeah, play the games, I guess, and because it seems pretty faithful. Again, maybe too faithful thanks to the fans. So we'll find out.
I don't know. I don't know much about Mila what? Sorry, I'm tired.
Cool. Thanks, Corinne and Henry, for being here.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Real Nerds Podcast. Real Nerds Podcast is a production of Nebulous Visions Multimedia. Thank you to Sparks Mandrill and Plan 9 Studios for our kick-ass theme song. Also, if you're in the Denver area and you're looking for a cool place to see movies, we see them at the Alamo Drafthouse in Littleton and now also in Sloan's Lake. Thank you to Colorado Coins, Cards, and Comics for supplying us with all our comic needs, especially you, Andrew. You know who you are. And a big shout out to James's mom. I'm giving you an electronic hug that you can feel through the airwaves. Thanks for listening, and have a nice day.